Yes, hello, hi. Welcome to my channel. I'm Danny Spirit, and this week we are talking Activision Blizzard because they are failing hard. CEO Bobby Kotick and board members are under investigation because of a Wall Street Journal article that came out recently implying that they knew about and dismissed workplace misconduct. Let's dive a little inside together as we pick apart this piece of Bobby Kotick and see what's next for both the industry and Activision Blizzard. Sexual harassment, misconduct, unequal pay, unequal work opportunities, crunch work, and death, they're all here. As the biggest video game story of the year, we need to start at the beginning. So back in July 2021, after a 2-year investigation, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard for promoting a frat boy culture that hindered the development and advancement of marginalized and female employees. A culture that includes sexual misconduct and harassment. Shareholders then filed a class action lawsuit with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, resulting in a subpoena for Bobby and his executives. The feds now want to see. So understandably upset, over 2,600 Activision Blizzard employees signed an open letter. This letter demanded that Activision Blizzard enact sweeping personnel and organizational changes, as well as other executives who are at fault. So at the end of July, employees staged a walkout in hopes of having the company address their issues. And of course, Activision Blizzard did not. But is that a big surprise to anyone? This man had a 2020 payout package of $154 million. That's insane. We get it, bro. You love money. You're grubby. And he wants his hellhole to be #1 in America, or at least #1 in the video games industry. But let's rewind back to 1991 so we can get a better look at
all of this trash.
Now, Activision Blizzard has been around since 1979 publishing games. They weren't known as Activision Blizzard back then, they were just known as Activision, but they were a pretty much dominant force in the industry from the get-go. Now, Bobby Kotick and a group of investors bought Activision in 1991 because it was so enormously in debt, and they only bought it for $500,000. As he signed this contract, Bobby Kotick had one order of business. And that was to fire 142 out of 150 employees. He then spends the next couple of years turning around the company, finally making it profitable in 1997. Congrats, Bobby. Validation, Bobby. Yay, you did it, Bobby. Yay. Bobby, you made it, Bobby. You finally did it. So with his Illuminati badge in one hand and his fat stack of bills in another hand, Bobby saw one tactic forward in order to become #1 in the video game industry. The dot-com bubble of the late 1990s was happening at the time, and so Bobby thought that he could just, go on a little acquisition spree. And it was during this period of tyranny that he acquired over 24 studios.
Then impaled them all on stakes.
In a decade, some of these acquisitions actually ended up turning out pretty well for Bobby. A couple of the companies that Bobby actually acquired during this time were Infinity Ward and Treyarch. Now, you probably know the two from the Call of Duty series. Yep, the white man shooter that we all know and love. Another acquisition at this time was Neversoft, and they're known for doing the Tony Hawk Pro Skating series. But this whole gimme era tyranny for Bobby really just came to a perfect end when he started to consider purchasing Vivendi Games, a French media conglomerate. Now, obviously the main goal was for Vivendi to buff out his bottom line. But see, there was another thing. Vivendi actually owned a little studio named Blizzard Entertainment. See, Blizzard had the #1 massive multiplayer online game, or MMO, in the world, World of Warcraft. But see, Bobby feared MMOs because they were actually getting quite popular and pretty much dominating the market at the time, or at least pop culture. And they've really been growing since 2004. So Bobby saw this passive income that comes from the subscription model that World of Warcraft was known for and he wanted that. He wanted that sweet, sweet passive income. But see, Blizzard was also known at the time for their StarCraft series, which was a real-time strategy game, as well as Diablo, which was a role-playing game and dungeon crawler. So after a little bit of back and forth, Bobby finally got his birthday wish. He fused his wet and slimy skin with Vivendi Games in 2008. And this era is just so fantastic because it just goes to show that this man is a one-trick business pony. I mean, 24 acquisitions in a decade, I get it, they're cheap, but come on. And he wanted these cheapo companies because he wanted their branding, he wanted their intellectual property, he didn't want their talent, but he probably wanted their executives with industry knowledge. All to increase his market share so that he can be number one in an emerging industry. So finally, with the creation of Activision Blizzard in 2008, the company started to skyrocket in revenue. The company went from a $4.28 billion net income in 2009 to an $8.1 billion net income in 2020. Congrats, Bobby. Validation, Bobby. Yay, you did it, Bobby. Yay. Bobby, you made it, Bobby. You finally did it. But wait. I think I smell some rotten business decisions. And I think they might be going to rotten business outcomes. Let's investigate. So I was going to start this section by saying that I really hate beating a dead horse by giving out these wretched details of the situation. But then I started to think, no, that's both wrong and disrespectful for all the people who have been hurt by this. We can only enact change by acknowledging the abuse and finding ways to systematically end it. Now let me go over some of the newest details that have come to light about Bobby and Activision per this bombshell November Wall Street Journal report. 1. He intervened in a 2019 internal investigation where Treyarch co-head Dan Bunting was accused of sexual harassment. The investigation literally recommended for him to be fired, but because Dan was pretty successful with the whole Call of Duty franchise, Bobby decided to intervene and basically say, no, you just need to do a little bit of therapy. 2. Bobby has on record and forcibly made other executives send out his emails in their name, effectively ghostwriting corporate memos. And of course, the memos that he's been sending out under these other names have been tone deaf and have been picked apart by the employees and by the media. This is the absolute lowest effort way to shovel your own Bobby. Come on. 3. The first female co-head to lead a division at Activision Blizzard has recently also left. She was promoted to that spot only to find out that her male counterpart who was promoted with her was making a lot more money. They both petitioned multiple times for her to get her salary raised. And Activision denied every single one of those petitions. Denied them, full well knowing the bad public relations that went along with it. And of course, she left the company. 4. Oh, and drunk male white employees were so much a thing they called it cube crawls. Obvious, it's a frat boy culture. And these cube crawls were the very mature game of just going around and literally harassing and assaulting female employees. 5. Suicide. After a female employee was harassed when new pictures were shared of her around the office to male coworkers. It's truly, truly insane. Don't worry though, Bobby's at the table. He's aware of this all. He'll fix it. 6. In 2006, an assistant complained that he literally left her a voicemail threatening to kill her. This was such a substantial incident that they actually ended up settling out of court. But those incidents are really only what we know. There's now so many reports coming in of harassment at Activision Blizzard over the years. And any of those misconduct violations that came through Activision Blizzard's HR department, yeah, they're not confidential. Yeah. So when you are already marginalized at your workplace and you experience abuse and you speak up about that said abuse, you are literally laughed at and you are hurt professionally. And managers have actually been accused of passing around this data in order to keep their He-Man Women Haters Club at Activision Blizzard going. And because of this horrible power dynamic going on, they're spreading fear into these people. They are denying them, with this data, they are denying them work opportunities and projects. They are transferring them to other departments or divisions. and they're even prioritizing them during rounds of layoff. But this hasn't stopped current and former employees from still putting in complaints to human resources about harassment that they've experienced at Activision Blizzard. So if all these reports are coming in, what's the POV on all this bullshit? So Bobby, the Godfather's burnt orange baby, is definitely in hot water. Wall Street Journal has stated that Bobby knew about all of this for years. And because this middle-aged man is more tone deaf than my ailing grandfather, he has released the chef's kiss of press releases.
We are disappointed in the Wall Street Journal's report, which represents a misleading view of Activision Blizzard and our CEO. Instances of sexual misconduct that were brought to his attention were acted upon. The Wall Street Journal ignores important changes underway to make this the industry's most welcoming and inclusive workplace, and it fails to account for the efforts of thousands of employees who work hard every day to live up to their and our values.
It makes sense that this is written in a way to discredit the Wall Street Journal, right? But Bobby, come on. It's not a good look, especially if there are so many accounts of you and your boys harassing people. Oh, look at you defending Dan Bunting after this internal investigation. Bobby probably wrote this memo on his toilet in his corner office, alone and afraid. I mean, just look at this like poorly worded and just aggressive second sentence. And just one other question, sir. Is this industry's most inclusive and welcoming workplace from an outlet or self-reported? Bobby is still stuck on his PR trash fire toilet. It is now known that over 30% of Raven Software's QA team were terminated over the weekend. Yes, I know Bobby probably didn't personally fire them, but maybe he did. So let's roll with that narrative. But these employees were in good standing performance-wise, and these employees just came off of 5 weeks of overtime, and now they're going into the crunch work holiday season. Wonderful. Now you're putting more pressure on those other Raven Software employees because you decided to get rid of these people for no reason. It doesn't end. I mean, really writes itself. So what's gonna happen? Will there be any changes in Activision Blizzard? Will there be any changes in the industry? One can hope. Activision has a major presence in the industry, and this could be a great time for them to be industry leaders in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion tactics. They could hold these abusers responsible and also give several lifelines to their existing employees. They could hire an outside body to investigate all of these reports as well. Oh, they have. In response to the lawsuits, Activision Blizzard has hired prominent big law firm WilmerHale to oversee a review of their policies and procedures. You know, there is just one issue here though. WilmerHale is a self-described anti-union law firm. But of course, it seems like every detail just keeps on adding more to the corporate BS. So what's in store for Activision? What could possibly be on the horizon? With these lawsuits, Activision Blizzard employees have formed a workers group called A Better ABK, who in September filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board that Activision was engaging in coercive union-busting tactics through WilmerHale. We have now reached a tipping point. Employees around Activision Blizzard have staged another walkout, declaring it now an official strike. Because of this, the other employee group, the ABK Workers Alliance, announced that they started a GoFundMe for $1 million to support staff. Here's the link, but it's also in the description, so I encourage everyone to go and donate. Employees are now forming their own bid to unionize, which 30% need to agree to before the company can have a secret ballot vote that would then enable the union, allowing Activision Blizzard employees to bargain collectively. So it's clear we are nowhere near the end of the story. So here's my final verdict. The people are right. There's a blatant power abuse that centers around sexual misconduct, inequality, and harassment. And this power abuse runs rampant through the entire video game industry. There will not be change until workers across the entire industry are able to better protect themselves. Activision Blizzard is going to keep doing their own thing, however unethical, stupid, and money grubbing it is. They will literally keep doing it until the company goes under. Bobby is saying at this point that you have to pry the company away from him. He's gonna want someone to acquire Activision Blizzard someday, just like he acquired all those other companies. That is the only way he's going to retire from this position. there will not be change until workers across the entire industry are able to better protect themselves. Now is the time to enact change, to unionize, and to protect the livelihoods of all of us. That's all we have. But I want to know what your opinions are about it. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? It seems pretty unanimous that Activision Blizzard is going down in some way. Will there be any accountability? Will these workers finally unionize? Or should they unionize? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments, and I'm sure I'll be back with another video on this topic eventually, because we know it's not going anywhere. So if you liked today's video and you found my goodies good, then be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And I've got some good videos on the way, so come back in a couple of days, or you will be cursed. Okay, bye y'all.